welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're traveling to a world of fantasy that's anything but final as we break down 10 things you need to know before playing Final Fantasy XVI. For this list, we'll be looking at all the info we know going into the latest release in SquareEnix's longest running franchise. What are you most looking forward to in Final Fantasy XVI? Tap into the power of the crystals and let us know down in the comments. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Eikon Summons.
Child of fate, awakened, if freed.
Summons have been a series staple since the earliest days of Final Fantasy, but have mostly been another tool in the player's arsenal during battles. However, in Final Fantasy XVI, they're at the heart of not only combat, but also the narrative as well. Final Fantasy XVI will feature many familiar summons, or icons as they're known this time around, such as Phoenix, Ifrit, Shiva, Rama, and Bahamut, as well as countless others, and the game will feature not only battles against many of them Shadow of the Colossus style, but also one-on-one clashes with the player in direct control of one of the mighty icons. These climactic clashes will feature different playstyles depending on the icon, such as an on-rails shooter or straight-up brawler. A fantastic hideout.
She's the best healer this side of the belt. You've nothing to worry about. Go on, have a look around. I'll be in my solo.
As the story progresses, players will gain access to Cid's hideout, which acts as a hub world for Clive during his travels through Valisthea. Along with various side quests Clive can pick up, he'll also have access to the many shops and merchants where he will gain some of his most powerful weapons to battle the many monsters, both man and beast, in his journey. Clive can also bring new materials to the blacksmith for him to craft even more powerful weapons and armor, as well as upgrade your favorites. Clive can also access a training area to try out his new skills and weapons by using the Areta Stone, and can adjust the parameters for every match, as well as share completion scores online with other players. Generations of Fantasy.
I'll kill you. If it's the last thing I do.
Final Fantasy XVI, like its predecessors, is a massive game, but unlike those that came before it, we'll get to live out Clive's adventure throughout a large portion of his life. An early flashback will allow players to play out Clive's early years of his teens, 20s, and finally his 30s in present day, and discover the events that started his adventure, as well as how these moments shaped not only Clive and his companions, but also the world and many kingdoms of Valisthea. Given what we've already seen from the trailers, we can't imagine it will be an entirely happy upbringing.
It is.
Clive!
A fantasy for everyone. As one of the longest running RPG franchises in video games, the Final Fantasy series has always been one of the most approachable RPG series for newcomers, and Final Fantasy XVI is taking strides to help ease those into its new gameplay style. Players who want to focus on just the story and world of Valisthea can opt for story mode, and are given numerous extras in the form of various rings Clive can combine and equip to give him certain advantages during combat, such as auto evasion or some of the more advanced combat abilities being mapped to a single button press. Producer Yoshi P says the team is aiming to make this the most accessible Final Fantasy game to date, and allow players of any skill level to see the story through to completion. Single player.
Alright, Clive. Still busy saving the world?
Mid. When did you get back?
While the majority of mainline Final Fantasy titles are predominantly single player, gamers still had control over their various companions' actions, or in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, direct control via character swapping. In Final Fantasy XVI, however, even though Clive will have numerous companions accompany him out in the world, Clive will be the only playable character under the player's control, with the game's AI taking full control of your allies and adjusting their attacks accordingly during battles. There is, however, one companion Clive can issue commands to, his loyal pupper Torgal, who will not only aid Clive in battle, but can also heal his master when needed. Plus, you can give him treats and pets to let him know what a good boy he is. Valisthea.
It has been 1,500 years since the fall of our forebears. And Valisthea has been slowly dying.
The majority of Final Fantasy games within the mainline series have typically been more, well, fantasy, taking players to medieval lands full of warring kingdoms and world-ending calamities. In recent years, many Final Fantasy games have taken a somewhat more modern approach to their fantasy formula, but with 16, the series is returning to its roots. Final Fantasy XVI's main world Valisthea is comprised of 6 kingdoms built around enormous mother crystals and the powers they give to their respective countries. Clive will eventually travel to all 6 kingdoms, and players will get to see firsthand how each kingdom has adopted the properties of the crystals that give them their power, and how the infectious blight that is sweeping the lands has affected their allegiances with the neighboring kingdoms.
We're in the middle of the Deadlands.
The blight sucked this place dry. Meaning no trees, no birds, and no magic.
Smaller open world. While the world of Valisthea and its 6 ruling kingdoms might seem like it would rival the vast open world of Final Fantasy XV, Valisthea isn't a true open world for players to freely roam from one kingdom to the next. Instead, Valisthea is broken up into segmented areas that are open for the player to explore, but confined within its boundaries. Within these zones, we've seen numerous different biomes such as arid deserts, dense jungles, as well as many rural areas such as the numerous villages and towns dotting the map. That being said, the explorable areas of Valisthea are still quite large, so players won't feel like they're being pushed down a linear path to the next objective, and will have plenty of room to explore, especially on the back of the fan favorite Chocobo, a game of crystals.
Where ambition is divine.
The Imperial banner shall fly over every city in storm. All shall bow.
The Final Fantasy series has never been afraid to tackle serious and oftentimes uncomfortable subjects, but even by those standards, Final Fantasy XVI seems to be one of the darkest entries in the mainline series, especially given it's the first numbered entry to receive a mature rating. Beyond the obviously more bloody and visceral combat, anyone familiar with Game of Thrones will have an idea of what sort of political backroom dealings and backstabbing plots the kingdoms of Valisthea will undoubtedly be involved in their quests for power. Within Cid's hideout, players can also visit the Lordesman Harpocrates to keep up to date with the story as it progresses, as well as Vivian Ninetails, who will keep Clive up to date with the many allegiances and connections between the 6 kingdoms.
The dark swallows more of the realm with each passing day, and as the fringes fade, the people flock to the mother crystals.
Dominating combat.
Must I spell it out for you, Branded? No one is listening. No one at all! Come, little lamb, to the slaughter with you.
While Final Fantasy XV took the franchise into more action-oriented territory, the Final Fantasy VII Remake rode the line between turn-based and all-out action RPG. Final Fantasy XVI, however, is fully leaning into a more action RPG style of combat and more akin to the over-the-top spectacle of Devil May Cry. And considering the game's combat director also worked on the spectacular 5th entry, it isn't hard to make the comparison. Clive can unlock various skills to expand his repertoire of moves, and even these are far more like the special moves seen in DMC than a traditional Final Fantasy game. In addition, Clive will have access to numerous Eikon's abilities during normal combat and can switch powers quickly with a single press of the trigger. allowing him to open up all new combos and combat opportunities for whatever stands in his path.
13 years I've waited for this chance. I won't be dying today.
Next-gen fantasy. Although with recent releases in the Final Fantasy series being multi-platform, Final Fantasy XVI will be a PS5 console exclusive, also making it one of the few truly current-gen titles in the PS5's growing library. While the developers haven't completely ruled out a PC port in the future, those hoping to play the newest mainline Final Fantasy game on their Xbox Series consoles seem to be out of luck for the time being. Producer Yoshi P has also stated that the game needs to be an exclusive to the PS5 due to the increased power and the larger-than-life battles against the Eikons that all take place in real time and constantly switch back and forth between gameplay and cinematics. Final Fantasy XVI will be released on June 22nd, 2023, exclusively for PS5.
We don't need your salvation. We'll save ourselves, and we'll do it on our own terms. Come to me, Ifrit!
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.